Hello. Welcome to the Turret of Pleasure. Here in the enchanted kingdom of Hermione, I'm your host, Zipgun. I'm the Lord Chamberlain of the Enchanted Kingdom, keeper of the seals. And I got hankering for a CD. I found a CD online that looked like it was interesting. I ordered it and I got it, and I realized it was a type of CD that I don't know if I've actually talked much about them. But it's what I call a barrel scraping. And a barrel scraping is, they can take many forms. It can be a disgruntled ex-record company getting even with a artist for signing with another record company and saying, well, fine, you owe us, we're going to put this stuff out that we have in our vaults that we have the right to. And there's been a whole lot of great, terrible barrel scraping records over the years. Metamorphosis by the Rolling Stones is one that comes to mind. And Dylan by Bob Dylan, holy smoke, which was mostly outtakes of Self-Portrait, which itself is a god-awful record. So yeah, and the barrel scrapings of that, that's stooping pretty low. That's getting personal. Once in a while, though, the barrel scrapings are worthwhile, and sometimes they're fantastic, and sometimes it's everything all at once. And so I was just I bought this recent CD, which I will save till last. But it got me thinking, so what constitutes a barrel scraping? Well, a lot of things. And these are ones that I was just sort of playing with. First barrel scraping, Giles, and Fripp. What are they called again? The Bronsbury tapes. Now, these are their home recordings. Giles, and Fripp. Peter Giles, Michael Giles, Robert Fripp. Pre-King Crimson. And if you are a King Crimson fan and you've never heard Giles, and Fripp, be warned, it is not very much like King Crimson. But what it is delightful British mid-60s pop music. Very witty and wordy and with a bloody good guitar player. And these guys weren't just chuckleheads. They look like the silliest band in the world. God only knows what they were thinking. But they were also, because of course Fripp, they had a tape deck and they would record and they got bloody good at it. So these are essentially the demos, for the most part, of the records, of the stuff that ended up becoming the Cheerful Insanity album that they did for Daram. Recorded at the Beacon Royal Hotel. Now, I discovered Giles, and Fripp, the Cheerful Insanity of, not that many years ago. I saw it kicking around forever, and it looked forbidding. I thought, this doesn't look very good. The original cover was, and then when I finally found a copy and bought it, I loved it. It was just a great record. And sadly, they only made the one record. I don't think they ever hardly played live. But a million years after the fact, with that record sort of being sporadically in and out of print, I have a very happily got a Daram copy on CD. Yay! But somebody had the presence of mind to put this out. Now, this is a barrel scraping for sure, but it's a terrific barrel scraping. And it's got basically the genesis. I Talk to the Wind is on this. So the genesis of King Crimson is here. Judy Dybel sings. Ian MacDonald's on some of it. And it really, it sort of works in tandem with the Giles, and Fripp and the Court of the Crimson King record. It's sort of a bridge. So if you're into this, a very worthwhile purchase. It was only about $18. This one made me laugh because the promise, it's so tantalizing, what could be. Now, this didn't come out for a really long time, and this is a barrel scraping of the first water. It's when did this come out? 2016, Light in the Attic. Oh, yeah. Sony Music gets a little logo on this. Now, Betty Davis did do 3, I think, or 4 really interesting, crazy soul records in the 70s that, if you're into that kind of thing, she is one sassy mama. And look at that great picture. And this is when she was married to Mr. Miles Dewey Davis. And one can only imagine, this would have been 68, 69. This is like Bitches Brew, baby. And they were married for a hot minute. I don't think their marriage lasted a year. And one can only imagine what went down with these two. I do believe they hung out with people like Sly Stone. Oh yeah, look at this. Anyway, this was the long rumored 1968-69 Columbia Sessions. Apparently Miles somehow managed to get her in for I don't know what this recording was supposed to be. And it's been a while since I've listened to this. But the band, where are we here? Yeah, unfortunately, this is annoying. Produced by Jerry Fuller. Arrangements by Hugh Masekela. Musicians, Alfred Abreu, Herbert Anderson Jr., Cecil Bernard, Bobby Bruce, Donald Cook, Jesse Ehrlich, Wilton Felder, Roy Gaines, Wayne Henderson. So, Hugh Masekela plays on it. Now, I thought, wait a minute. Tracks 1 to 6. Harvey Brooks, Billy Cox, Herbie Hancock, John McLaughlin, Mitch Mitchell, Wayne Shorter, and Larry Young. Yeah, those are the ones you want to hear. And 1 to 6, but there's a broken down take of I'm Really Willing and Able. Mind you, now, this is basically an EP. And it doesn't sound like they were really gelling all that well. So, what the heck? You can hear it, they do a great version of Politician Man, which I seem to remember being Hanging Out is okay. It's just not, it's okay. And it's great to hear what was essentially Miles Davis's band at the time, basically rocking out with Miles's crazy little young wife, who was rumored to party her brains out in many. So, like I say, their marriage didn't last very long, but they stayed friends, and she went into the 70s sort of reborn. A barrel scraping, to be sure. Again, if you like Betty Davis, this was about $20 to buy, and it's a little bit pricey for what you get, because what you get is essentially an old single, I think it is, and then this sort of session that they did with Miles's band, which is 5 songs. Okay. Barrel scraping. Here we go. Now, I found this in the thrift store the other day, and wouldn't you know it, I already had it. Weasels Ripped My Flesh by Frank Zappa. Now, you saw barrel scraping, you say? Yes, but it's Zappa scraping his own barrel. And when he dissolved the Mothers of Invention, he had so much recording already backed up that once he got his deal with Warner Brothers, which was immediately before this, he figured he could put out two Mothers of Invention albums. The first of which was Burnt Weenie Sandwich, which was mostly studio, or it had some live stuff, but kind of more, I don't know how you describe it. Well, there's 2 doo-wop songs on it, kind of, and then a bunch of almost classical music. Holiday in Berlin, Little House I Used to Live In, stuff like that. This is more of a complete crazy experimental pastiche of everything. It features a great cross-section of the band. Basically, everybody. Lowell George is on this. Buzz Gardner on trumpet. They weren't in the band that long. Artie Tripp. Everybody's in this band. Even Ray Collins is on this. So it's just a little bit of everything. The last song is just them all making noise for 2 minutes. It's very conceptual. It features the Eric Dolphy Memorial Barbecue, which was my introduction, strangely. When I was maybe 11, I was like, who is Eric Dolphy? Somebody told me. And I was in Palm Springs as a 10-year-old or 11-year-old. And in a delete bin, I found an Eric Dolphy twofer on Prestige for $2. And it was one of those Prestige twofers, and it had Out There and Outward Bound, I think it was, which changed my life. So, yeah. Good record. There's a lot of kind of like the Prelude to the Afternoon of the Sexually Aroused Gas Mask, and Did You Get Any On You is, it has a feel of You Had to Be There. But it's got a little bit of everything. Get a Little is the usual mindless Zappa guitar jam. Anyway, I got it for $1 in the thrift store, and I already had it, so I gave it away, and I still have it. Okay, now, oh yeah, we're going to get down to some great ones. This is, it dawned on me that this is a barrel scraping. This is Grove Fins. Now, this came out, this was a pretty big deal when it came out, because there had been very little Captain Beefheart ephemera released, and this promised to be something else. And it is, or was at least, something else. It's sort of diminished a tad. It's a 5 CD box with a really honkin' good booklet written by Mr. John French, the drummer and probably the person best equipped to write a history of the Magic Band, other than Don himself. And, however, there's not a lot of meat on the bones of this. The booklet is worth buying the box for. This is also fairly old, so it was early technology. So there was some videos included on one of these discs, which are, of course, now everywhere on YouTube. You don't need to go anywhere to find them. 111-page book. It's very awkwardly laid out, but basically it's 5 CDs. CD 1 is old recordings, demos, 1966, 67, lots of white blues. There's an acetate demo. These are okay, but they're for completists only. I'm happy to have them. There's 2 demos of Here I Am, I Always Am, which wasn't even deemed good enough to be on the record, but there you go. The second, now these aren't even particularly long either, 39-minute CD. Second one is Electricity, which is 68 live and 67 demo, which the Cornring King Finger demo showed up somewhere else much later in a better sounding thing. The 68 live, I think, is from the John Peel show. It's at the Midam. Okay, not very good sound. It's good, but CD 3 is the real interesting one. It's basically the Trout Mask House Sessions. So these are the original recordings that Dick Kunk did, which a couple of these got used on the album with subsequent overdubs. But for the most part, these sound exactly like Trout Mask, except that there are no vocals on them. And they're very well recorded, and they're fascinating to listen to. And there's a couple of broken down takes, and they don't stop the tape, so there's little bits and pieces in between. Fascinating. CD4 is mostly enhanced CD stuff, so it's not really, it's got all the enhanced CD instructions. And then there are 4 audio tracks of just basically Trout Mask House Sessions Storytime portion. And there's like 12 minutes of Don talking to the kids in the bush. And then CD5 is kind of an all-purpose wrap-up of just odds and sods. It's got the version of Odd Jobs on it, but it's a really wobbly tape version. There's a much better version out now. There's a couple of live radio things with Zappa. There's a couple of Mellotron things. It's all very, I mean, yeah, I want it. But at the time, it was devoured by Beefheart nuts. It was a lot like $100. I'll bet it's worth money. It came out on vinyl. People loved it on vinyl, boy. But I find that the substance of it, if I want to actually source any of those songs, I got a better version somewhere else. Glad I bought it. It did its thing. Okay, this one's great. I found this for $2 at the local bookstore. And I was like, what the hell is this? Van Morrison, Paying Dues on Charlie. And Van Morrison is one of those guys. He's an asshole, but I like a lot of his music. And it's almost beyond him to make a bad album. However, I also have a saying that every artist, every iconic artist has a skeleton in their closet. We found it. Now, I think I might have reviewed this once before, so I'll keep it short. 2 CDs. CD 1 is essentially odds and sods, best of the Bang Records era. Disc number 2, it's good. It's got Brown Eyed Girl. It's got whatever. A couple alternate version of Brown Eyed Girl. But it's definitely a barrel scraping. But nothing prepares you for disc 2, which is 31 little tiny songs performed by what sounds like a very inebriated Van Morrison on a not really in tune guitar, and he is clearly making songs up on the spot. Now, the reason for this recording's existence is that apparently his contract also stipulated he had to write songs, present songs to Brett Burns as part of his contract, and this was his way of getting out of his contract by presenting him with 30 completely useless songs, because he wanted to sign with Warner. Warner's had money, and Brett Burns, I don't even know if Brett Burns was still alive. I think he was. At any rate, they kind of reached this impasse. He presented him with this thing, and really these should have just been, they should have been destroyed, but no, and they percolated around the industry for who knows how long, until Charlie, who should have known better. This is a long time ago, this one. This is an old comp, boy. Charlie put them out. Now, these are 94. Okay, look at some of these song titles. There's Twist and Shake, then there's Shake and Roll, then there's Stomp and Scream, then there's Scream and Holler, then there's Jump and Thump. Whew. Shake It, Mabel, Hold On, George, The Big Royalty Check. There's a whole lot of references to not getting paid in these songs. You say you say France and I whistle. There's a song called Blow in Your Nose, followed by a song called Nose in Your Blow. Here Comes Dumb George. Hang On Groovy. It's really, where's the song about Ringworm? There's a Ringworm. Yeah. Go to YouTube and look up Ringworm Van Morrison and get back to me. Worth every cent of $2 just to document its passing. And this was all triggered, all of this ridiculousness, because I didn't know this record was available. I didn't even really know much about it. But I am a big fan of Godley and Cream and 10cc. And I've been sort of reappraising 10cc, and they were a really excellent pop band. I mean, they really were like the Beatles in many respects. And except more evenly balanced, perhaps. At any rate, Godley and Cream are two of the weirdest guys ever to win a Grammy. I mean, really, wow. Or was it an Oscar? I forget what they won for their videos. MTV Awards. Amazing. And yet, these guys are weirdos. They're a couple of weirdos. And I was unaware that in the early days, when they were in Manchester, and all of 10cc are from Manchester, and they all kind of knew each other, they were in various bands, and the first one that ever did anything that anybody could go to the store and buy, 1968, what was the name of the bloody... The Yellow Bellow Room Boom, they called themselves. It was Godley and Cream and God knows who else, other people, I think, but studio people. And they put out a single on CBS called Seeing Things Green and Easy Life. And these are singles you hear some of these specialty, 60s nostalgia channels. And they were kind of in with Graham Gouldman, who was popular at the time as a songwriter, but he also had a bit of a solo career going. And he was a session guy, and he was pretty well connected. And Kevin Godley went to a session with Goldman where Giorgio Gamelski was in attendance, and Godley sang some backing vocals for something that Goldman was doing, actually for Gamelski's label, I think it was. Because Gamelski suddenly had a label. He was the guy started the Crawdaddy Club with the Stones, and he was connected. But he was also a flake. The Yardbirds, he managed the Yardbirds, and he had somehow started this label called Marmalade, and then somehow got Polydor to give him money, which was a mistake, because he basically took the money and blew it all and then disappeared. But before he did that, he put out a whole bunch of pretty interesting records. One of which was this Wheels on Fire by Julie Driscoll and, what's his name? Brian Auger, which is a minor hit. It even got released in Canada. I remember when it came out in Canada. I had it. I think I might still have it. But amongst the other things, Gamelski really liked Godley's voice. So Godley said, well, my partner and I, we just did a record for CBS. And Gamelski says, well, why don't you do a record for Marmalade? And so they did a song. They had a song, and he heard it, and he loved it. He goes, okay, we're going to call you, wait for it, Frabjoy and Runcible Spoon. And I had always heard about Frabjoy and Runcible Spoon and didn't know anything about them other than they had the world's silliest name. Well, they put the single out, and apparently there's a great story in here where one of the popular DJs at the time played the single, and the single's got a long outro, and on the outro he's scat singing along and doo-ba-dee-doo-doo, and then he goes, okay, now we're going to go into, and they go into part of the second side of Abbey Road, like for the first time ever on the radio. So it was a good place to be if you were getting played on the radio. However, like literally 2 weeks after the single comes out, Giorgio disappears, the label crashes, everything just fucking goes for a giant shit, and that is that. Meanwhile, they had been recording an album for Marmalade. So, what do we have here? Barrel scrapings, my friend. We have the Yellow Bellow Room Boom single in all of its wonderful glory, and it's okay, it's fun, and, and then we have the Marmalade single called I'm Beside Myself, B.W. Animal Song. And then we also have the Gray and Goldman song that Godley sings on. There was a song originally credited to Kevin Godley, but it ended up on the Runcible Spoon, Frabjoy and Runcible Spoon album. But that came out on a sampler for Marmalade. So there's all these little... But, and then the first 9 tracks are the album that never got released. And it never got properly mixed either from the sound of it. Because they haven't taken out bits and pieces at the beginnings and endings of songs. Now, this is absolutely wonderful because they've presented what I think is the album in the order it might have been in, even though I don't think it's actually a full album. The problem is that they put the wrong version of I'm Beside Myself first. The single of I'm Beside Myself is one of the most wonderful pop songs I've ever heard. I just couldn't get enough of it. When I heard it, if I would have heard this in 1969, I would have flipped. And it's just a fabulous pop song. And unfortunately, on this record, and this is a great record, I'm glad I own it, because I really do like Godley and Cream, but it's a million times better than everything else on the CD. Everything else on the CD is pretty interesting, kind of 10cc, but more like the sheet music 10cc, the Godley Cream, the slightly weird 10cc, or the How Dare You 10cc. There's a couple of just shameless ballads with Godley's angelic voice. I love its youthful glory. To Fly Away is a very long... it's great. The Late Mr. Late by Gray and Goldman is pretty great on this. And then there's a couple of acetates, and there's a couple of... There's like 6 songs off the album, some of which are better than others, but they're all solid craftsman-like songs. These guys can craft a song. And then at the end, and this is delightful, Godley didn't remember making these, but they apparently got, because I had started up Strawberry Studios, or at least Strawberry Studios, I think, was operating at this point. They did as either 10cc or as whatever the group that was hanging out at Strawberry. They did a couple of promo records for a nightclub in Manchester called Blinkers. And one's called Hello Blinkers and the other one's called Good Night Blinkers. And they're fabulous. They're really, it's the kind of stuff that guys that own a studio, hey, we can make 50 pounds if we do that. Okay, sure. And they're preserved here in all their glory. A really great CD. It was $18. Got here in 2 days, 3 days, whatever. If you're any kind of 10cc or a Godley and Cream fan, you should own this. And if you're a fan of late 60s British psychedelic pop, you probably want this. It really holds up the test of time very well. So there you go. That's all the barrel scrapings I can think of for the time being. There's millions more. Put in the comments if you can think of ones I should try to find. A friend of mine pointed out they even tattoo you as a barrel scraping. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and all that. We'll get back at you when I got a project. I got a bunch of CDs to listen to, so I can't really report on them until I've actually played them. So I'm going to do that. So we'll talk to you later. Take it easy.